Hello, I'm Isabella, and welcome to the Showgirl Diaries Q&A. I am going to be answering your frequently asked questions about my experience becoming a burlesque dancer. If you're new here and you want to see how exactly I became a burlesque dancer, you can catch up on the whole series up here. There are 5 episodes. So in the final episode of the series, I asked you guys to ask your questions in the comments. I also put up a post on Instagram. If you're not following me, it's Isabella DeMarco. Someone asked, how have I learnt to do my burlesque hair? And actually, it's a wig. I scrape all my hair up into a bun and I have styled, it's actually called a half wig. It was really cheap. It's synthetic hair. I pin curled it and then brushed it out into vintage waves. I put a net over it because it's kind of frizzy and cheap, and then I just literally pin it onto the back of my head, and then with the front tease the frick out of it, put it into a vintage victory roll, which I actually learned how to do when I was 15 or 16. I got really into vintage hair, but I never really knew how to do it very well. What was your biggest fail on stage? Well, I've had a couple happen. Stocking malfunctions. I tried a different pair of stockings one night and I didn't practice with them, and I didn't realise that they kind of stuck to my legs, so my stocking peel was very ungraceful. I've had my shoe buckle not come off on time quite a few times. I've had my suspender belt not come off properly, so I just had to leave it on. My music has started too early before. I haven't fallen yet, thank God. One time I meant to have my feather fans in certain hands, but I had them in the wrong hands, so that was a bit of a fumble once, and I had to kind of strategically switch them around. Oh, I did actually have the clasp on my Diamante lingerie break because I reinforced it all with chicken wire. The actual chain was still held together, but the clasp broke, so it was kind of hanging, dangling off my back. Oh, one of my feathers came off my feather fan. I didn't even realise. Oh, I actually also tripped up a step when I was going on. I think it was my first time going on Proud Stage. I tripped a little bit on the step, but when I watched back the video, you couldn't really tell. A lot has happened in my short time doing burlesque, and that's because a lot can go wrong. I've gone to take off my stocking, but realised that I'd forgotten to unclip my suspenders. But the worst, hands down the worst so far, has actually been whilst I was performing with my feather fans, and I didn't pin my hairpiece in properly, and I must have knocked it with my feathers and I didn't realise, but by the end of the act, it was hanging off my head at an angle, by a few hairs, and as I went through the curtains to come off stage, it literally fell off onto my shoulder, and I realised, oh my god, was that hanging off my head the whole time? And lo and behold, yes it was. But it was a very good thing that I didn't notice, because I just carried on as normal. I had a big smile on my face. I was just being, my sexy self, woohoo. Didn't notice at all, but that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because if I did notice, it might have thrown me off a bit. And also, when things like that do happen, which they do happen, you kind of just have to be professional and improvise and act like it's not happening, and just the show must go on. Every burlesque dancer or performer at some point will have things go wrong, and it's just about how you deal with it. You just got to carry on. I did kind of cringe a lot after it. I was like, oh my god, that is so cringe, but I kind of just brushed it off and let it go, because at the end of the day, I don't know any of the people in the audience. I don't really care. It's fine. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. So a lot of people have asked if I've ever had any unwanted touching or grabbing from the audience, or any creepy experiences or harassment. Fortunately for me, in my experience so far, which is just over a year and a half, I have not experienced any touching or grabbing or harassment. It does happen, unfortunately, but usually the host will remind the audience, please no touching of the performers or the dancers. So usually the audience are respectful. I haven't had any harassment either, but again, that does happen. Again, I've not been doing this very long in the grand scheme of things. I've not actually done that many performances compared to most burlesque dancers, so it's probably going to happen at some point, and I'm sure people do say things after seeing the show. I don't know, I don't really care, to be honest. Do I get inappropriate offers? No, not yet. So basically, in terms of all of the creepy, weird harassment type stuff, I have not experienced much of that yet. Probably the most frequently asked question was, what do my family think of me doing burlesque? Were they worried? What was their reaction? Honestly, my family have been super supportive and positive about it. They did not show show any worry at all, really. I mean, when I started, I was 26. You know, I can make my own choices and decisions. I'm old enough to do these things. I don't think my mum was particularly surprised because I had shown an interest in burlesque in the past and she has known this, so she was actually quite happy for me. She thought it was a good idea. Yeah, my family's been pretty cool with it. Another question was, how did my boyfriend react to it? He also reacted really positively and gave me so much support. I actually couldn't have asked for him to react any better, to be honest. We are actually sadly not together anymore, but I am and always will be so thankful that he was really supportive about that choice in my life that I decided to pursue. I think if I ever was with someone in the future that had a problem with it, then I just probably wouldn't go any further with the relationship, honestly, because if you have a problem with it, I'm not gonna give it up just for a relationship. A lot of people asked, do I earn good money from it, and is it worth the effort that I put in? Like, am I fairly compensated? The answer to that is no. The pay is crap. Performing in itself is not a huge money maker. Basically, just don't get into burlesque if you want to make loads of money from it, unless you truly know that you could knock everyone out of the park and have the best costumes, the best dance routines, and that you're gonna like put 100% into it and become a star. Then yeah, you could probably make some money from it, like considerable money. And people do, especially for corporate events. But for the little beginner shows that I do, and like the most of the shows that I have done, it's not great. It's not great money. I actually want to go more in depth about what I've made and what I've spent and how that correlates with each other in a separate video, so stay tuned for that one. On that note, a couple of people asked, how much profit did I make from my show? Nothing. I actually made a loss. The whole show, like everything, paying everyone, like the whole total was just over £600 in revenue. So the total amount I made from ticket sales was like 500 and something. After paying everyone and even after paying myself as well, I made a loss of about £18, which actually isn't that bad. It's pretty much like breaking even compared to a lot of people's first ever shows. That's actually a really good outcome. One person asked, what kind of audience is it for burlesque? And it's really very mixed, and also it depends on the show, but most of the time it's a big mixture of people, men and women. A lot of people go on date nights to like cabaret shows, lots of gay men, lots of gay women, lots of queer people in general, sometimes just like mothers and daughters. The first couple of burlesque cabaret things I went to was with my mum, so I don't think you tend to get like just men going on their own just to get off. I'm sure it does happen, but for the most part it's just a mixture of people just going out for a good night of entertainment. You get a lot of hen parties, like you get a few bachelor parties, but it's mostly hen parties, so it's mostly women, like husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends on dates, a whole mixture. I had a few questions asking what's the best and worst thing about doing burlesque. My favorite thing personally is just the glamour of it all, like getting to dress up, do your hair, the costumes, sparkling, just feeling like a star, feeling my feminine energy, and just letting out that confident, sexy part of myself that I've always wanted to be. It makes me feel like a woman when I'm performing burlesque. Currently, my least favorite thing is the choreography, because I find it really difficult and I get really bad insecurity that the choreography is not going to be good enough, or that it looks bad, or it just doesn't look professional. So I think that's probably my least favorite thing, is like coming up with the dance. But of course there are a lot worse things than that, obviously, like the harassment and the creepiness and stuff that does happen, but fortunately none of that has really happened to me yet. I've kind of made peace with the fact that it's gonna happen. A lot of people have asked questions about confidence in general. There's actually so many different confidence questions that I kind of want to make a whole separate video going into the confidence side of things, because it's very complex and I have a lot of things to say and to share about how I've built confidence and what it's done with my confidence and just all kinds of things. So I've been wanting to make that for a little while, so stay tuned for that. So this one says, has it given me confidence in other areas of my life, and has my confidence grown from it? I've always actually been quite a confident person within myself. I've worked on building that for years. I think actually internally it has probably given me a lot of confidence, because if I can do that in front of an audience, I feel like I can probably do anything, Just being vulnerable in front of a lot of people is a good situation to build confidence in. Yeah, I think over the years, if I continue to do it, the confidence it's given me will manifest itself in other areas of my life for sure. But I think it's early days yet. I haven't really noticed, but I'm sure like it's doing something in my brain. I got so many questions about stage fright. How do I deal with the nerves? It is really nerve-wracking, of course. It's probably more nerve-wracking than like going on stage like for say theatre like I used to do. You're literally going on stage to do a sexy dance and there's so many more insecurities involved and there's so many things that can go wrong, like your costume could not come off properly, pasties could come off, like there's literally so many things that could go wrong. So it's really nerve-wracking. But there's a few different ways I deal with stage fright, which I actually learned from my acting days at university. A really good one that I love, that I've actually mentioned before in a video. One of my tutors once told me that right before going on stage, like when you're in the wings, you just say, fuck it. You release whatever tension was in your body and you just like fuck it off and then you go on stage. Fuck it, like who cares? You know what I mean? You only live once, let's just fucking do this. Another thing that I was doing quite early on and that I still sometimes do, I don't always, but when I feel like I'm really needing a bit of like extra confidence, I genuinely, and this sounds so cheesy, but I pretend that I'm Marilyn Monroe and it really actually helps. I really love Marilyn Monroe. I've watched like every documentary that there is about her, studied the way she acts and the way her face looks, and sometimes before going on I try to embody her and just pretend that I'm her and that I love the limelight, I love the attention, like I'm so excited to go on stage. I'm absolutely gorgeous, everyone loves me, there's nothing that could go wrong, and even if it does, I'm just so cute, like it's just gonna be fine, like I'll pull it off, I'll improvise, because I'm Marilyn Monroe, like come on. And the other thing is, which I've also talked about before, is turning my nervousness into excitement, because someone once told me that nerves is like a similar feeling or similar chemicals released in your body to the feeling of excitement. So just changing the words in your head from I'm nervous to I'm excited, putting a smile on your face and just feeling like, oh, I can't wait to do it, that helps too. And also when you're on stage and it's happening, it's bloody great, like it's brilliant, and kind of the nervousness is kind of gone and I'm just like kind of soaking up the moment and focusing on the performance and the audience, and it's great. Whew, that was a long answer, but I feel like that's quite helpful, in not just in terms of going on stage, but in like loads of different situations. So I hope that has helped some people. What surprised you most when starting burlesque? How easy it is to get started and get involved. That is what surprised me. Any tips on someone who wants to start doing burlesque? Okay, so number one would be to find a local burlesque class or burlesque course and just get involved and do it. That's the best way to start, because you get to know other people, and usually the teacher, whoever's teaching you, is or has been a burlesque dancer at some point, so you can learn a lot from them. You can ask them questions. I have found one of the best ways to get involved in the community is actually through Instagram. If you want to make a little Instagram account, it doesn't have to be public, you can make it private, and that can be your burlesque Instagram account just for yourself, and just use it to engage with the whole burlesque community, and you will learn so much about what shows are around you in your area, in your country. And in terms of starting to actually book shows, my tip would be to make sure you have one really good solid act which you have worked really hard on, that you have a good costume for, and that you know really well and you're confident with. You can take that one act to loads of beginner friendly shows or loads of newcomer shows, little independent competitions. Usually for more established shows they will ask you to have two acts, but if you have one at the beginning, that's honestly all you need usually. Also, if you're not sure about if you want to be public with it or like where you want it to go, just keep everything private whilst you're beginning. That's literally what I did until I felt like I was ready, and go at your own pace in your own little secret world. And then if you are ready and you do want to actually continue doing it like as a way that you get paid and as a performer, then that's when you can start to implement creating more acts and costumes and developing your skills. Is flexibility important, and do you have to know how to dance? No and no. I have a little bit of dance experience, but I'm not a dancer, and I am not flexible at all. It helps obviously if you have those skills, like being able to drop into a split on stage. I will always be impressed by that. As long as you can pose, have at least a little bit of rhythm, and can hit beats, and you know a few basic burlesque moves, you can make a burlesque dance. A lot of it is just like posing in really slow ways and like drawing attention to certain body parts, hitting beats, and I don't know what I'm doing. You'll notice in any of the footage that I have of myself dancing that I'm just like hitting beats, moving my hips in certain ways and my arms, making loads of facial expressions. Facial expressions are one of the best ways to level up your performance. Have you been scared to be almost naked at shows? Yes, I'd say so, but actually I think the idea of being naked in front of an audience is actually more scary than it actually happening. Just to quickly intervene in case you haven't seen the previous episodes, you never get naked in burlesque. You only ever strip down to pasties, which are little nipple covers, and like a thong, and that's as far as it ever goes. When I'm taking off each costume piece, I'm not really thinking about or nervous about the idea that I'm becoming more naked. I'm actually focusing more on the drama of the action itself, if you see what I mean, and I'm kind of just focusing on the performance because that's what burlesque is at the end of the day. What was the biggest fear or the hardest thing that you did since deciding to be a burlesque dancer? The scariest thing by far was going public about it on YouTube, because sadly that does open me up to a lot of criticism, and it also makes me quite vulnerable at shows because now I really don't know who could be in the audience. I also kind of thought, like, if I'm going to do it, like sooner or later people will find out about it, so you know, if I'm going to do it I may as well own it and embrace it. But I wanted to keep it very private at first because I didn't know if I actually would go anywhere with it. I didn't know if it was just me exploring a new interest, a new hobby. I didn't really even know if it would go any further. So I feel like because it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm actually really proud of this, then I was like, okay, maybe this would be worth sharing on my YouTube channel, because maybe this story could actually be inspirational or help other people to realize their own dreams and to realize that life is too short to not like actually try and go after them or do the things that they've always been too scared to do, you know? I think it's a really important story to share, if anything, but hell yeah, it was freaking scary as heck. I'm still scared about it. Also, it's something that I'm interested in, and I tend to share things I'm interested in on my channel, so it made sense. Someone else asks, how were you able to keep this a secret from your main YouTube audience? It was really easy, really, really easy. If you don't post about something, nobody will know. And I think this is a valuable lesson to take on board, because you never truly know the influencers that you watch on social media, online. It's very easy to hide things in your personal life. Like, if you don't want people to know about it, you just don't post about it and you don't talk about it, unless of course you're so famous that other people like invade your privacy and blah blah blah. I'm trying to make the point that it's actually a good thing that we are able to hide things. We should be able to have a private aspect of our lives. Influencers don't owe their audience the right to know about certain things, because we're just people. Our own lives is our own business. So I think a lot of especially younger viewers can get confused with that whole element with influencers, but I just wanted to add that in case people were thinking that I was saying like it was a bad thing that we can hide things, because it's a good thing. But yeah, I just didn't talk about it, and also because it was a completely different name and I had a whole separate social media with it, like it was not connected to my YouTube in any way. I have a somewhat large following, but it's not so big that people would recognize me, because the burlesque community is very small, so it's like it was very unlikely that anyone would recognize me, and I didn't really care anyway. With everything that has happened in your career, what is something you fear will happen / what is your biggest fear surrounding your career? I'm guessing they mean about burlesque. Isn't really my career, it's like a hobby. I don't even know what my career is, to be honest. I'm just kind of drifting around in life and making YouTube videos. But probably like my biggest fear in terms of burlesque is actually genuinely probably like my pasties falling off, or like my thong breaking or something. And it does happen. Pasties fall off all the time, not so much thongs. There's like this saying that goes around in burlesque: every burlesque dancer will at some point, like it's guaranteed that a pasty will fall off on stage. And so far I've been very lucky. I actually use carpet tape, which is really sticky. I think it also depends on like the shape of your nipple. Some people just have worse luck with it than others. I've seen it happen to other people on stage, and a lot of the time you just have to continue dancing. You can cover it if you want, or find creative ways to cover it. Some people just don't care and they just let it happen and they just dance around with their nipple out. Like, it's fine either way. I'm gonna make sure that it never happens to me. Like, if it does, I'll be very surprised. I love this person. This person was a huge part of my childhood. You know who you are. Hey girl, hey. They asked, do you plan to keep developing your burlesque skills and making new dances? Absolutely. I already have ideas of like what I want my next act to be like. Also, I want to take some dance classes. I'm not as confident with my dancing skills, so I want to like just practice dancing more. And I would also love to be able to get the splits, but if you watched my YouTube videos on trying to get the splits, you'll see what a pain I've had with it, and I still haven't achieved it, and I would love to achieve the splits one day. And a few people asked for like a hair or makeup tutorial, and I will definitely keep that in mind for the next time that I'm going to a show. Film a little get ready with me so you can see exactly how I do it. I'm hoping to invest in a lot more wigs. I can just style a lot of like really gorgeous vintage wigs, and then I won't have to, you know, put my hair through havoc. Could you name some of your main sources of inspiration for your burlesque career? There's a lot of stuff and a lot of performers I still haven't discovered yet. My actual all-time favorite burlesque dancer is called Frankie Fictitious. She won an award, I can't remember what it was, but she held the title for like a really big burlesque competition. Her style and her acts are just, you can see them on YouTube as well. They have been a huge inspiration to me whenever I want to like make a new burlesque act, or I want to get in the mood, or like try and like get myself hyped up. I watch Frankie Fictitious dancing and I'm like, yes. Also, somebody asked how much has Satine from Moulin Rouge influenced me, and the answer to that is a lot. When I was a kid, she was like my idol, my icon. Like I was like, I have to be like this woman one day. She's just like the epitome of all things feminine and beautiful and sexy and mysterious. I think that's probably where my inspiration like actually stemmed from the very beginning. A few people asked, how did I pick my stage name? There's actually a story to this. Basically, when I was a kid, I had a really scary neighbor called Loretta, although we of course pronounced it Loretta, and she was quite a few years older than me, but she was really bossy and really scary, and she would always demand that I go around and play with her so that we could play like teachers, and she would be the teacher and I would have to be the school kid. And yeah, we went to the same school, and so like at playtime, me and like the other little kids would like have to play with them and like play teachers, and I was like her little girl, like I was like her kid. This went on for a while, and like I kind of didn't like her very much, and then this one time they were like, okay, choose which class you want to be in, and I chose her friend. From that day, I will never forget, she looked me in the eyes and she said, you're not my little girl anymore, and she never spoke to me again. And so I stole her name. Then I kind of just tried to think of what went with Loretta. I almost went with Loretta Blake or Loretta Black. I have a lot of respect for Jean Harlow, being that she was an iconic female actress of her time, and of course I have a history with acting, so Loretta Harlow kind of rolled off the tongue and it sounded really good. And fun fact also, someone just let me know, I cannot believe I did not notice this, but throughout my entire series, I think, there was a typo in my name in the intro video, and I have spelt it Loretta Halrow for the whole series, and I did not notice. I don't think many other people noticed either, because I didn't see anyone comment it until the very last episode, so that's a fun little Easter egg for you. I got a few questions about performing in front of my family and who I didn't invite, and I God. So a lot of burlesque dancers are comfortable performing in front of their families, and a lot of their families, you know, their mums and dads do come and watch them eventually, like when it becomes their profession, and like it's all fine. Me personally, I've only not been doing it long, and I still kind of feel, in terms of with my family, I don't really feel like I'm like a full adult yet. Like whenever I'm with my family, I still feel like the baby. I almost feel like I'm not allowed to be sexy, and it feels really weird and horrible, and I don't like it. With my show, I would have preferred that none of my family saw it, honestly. I'm just very awkward with my family, but because the venue was like part of our family, it kind of just made sense for them to see it, and like they were really proud of me, and in a way I was proud of myself, and I did want them to see what I had achieved and what I'd been working on, but also at the same time I couldn't access like the sensual sexy part of myself. Actually, it just didn't feel it didn't feel right in front of my family. I guess I'm still like getting over that awkwardness. I did not invite my grandparents, obviously, and I did not invite my dad. I felt bad because I know he would have if I asked him to. Unfortunately though, my brother was there, but bless him, he looked away for pretty much my entire performance. It was actually quite funny. He obviously wanted to come and support, but he did not look. He like stared at the wall for my entire performance, which I'm actually thankful about. And then there was just like a few like different, like my cousin and my godmother and family friends and things, which was fine, and like aunties and stuff. A lot of questions about body insecurities. Of course I have insecurities about my body, and of course I compare myself to other dancers as well. There's always going to be performers and burlesque dancers and just dancers in general that are going to be better than me, prettier than me, more curvier than me, more charisma than me, more talent than me. There is always going to be that, and there's not really a whole lot I can do about it except from focus on myself and what I have to give and what makes me unique. And so that's what I try to bring to the table. I know I'm not the best, and I definitely do get imposter syndrome. That was another question, and I did mention that in my last episode. I follow a lot of other burlesque dancers on Instagram, and when I see their videos pop up, I'm like, oh my god, they're so amazing, they're so fierce and fantastic. But sometimes it actually makes me feel a bit insecure because I'm like, oh my god, I can't dance like that. So yeah, it's something that I deal with, and I'm pretty sure everyone else deals with too. Right, I'm just going to answer a few more questions because my throat is starting to hurt and this is turning into a very long video. Have you come across any married women or mums who perform cabaret? Of course I have. Cabaret and burlesque is not just for single people. In fact, probably most of the people that I've met that do burlesque are either in a relationship or married or are mums already. In the flesh, I have seen 2 pregnant women performing burlesque, and a lot of burlesque dancers do become pregnant, and most of them decide to stop dancing for the period that they're obviously pregnant, but some dancers do continue to dance while pregnant, and it's beautiful, really freaking stunning. I've met so many burlesque dancers and performers that are mums, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Where do you hope it will take you in the future? International? I'm really open for it to go anywhere. I'm open for it to go further. I'm open for it to go nowhere. I'm really open. But it would be really freaking cool if I could one day perform in America. I'm not making it like a goal or anything, but it would be really freaking cool. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. That was most of the questions in a roundabout way that I've answered. Sorry if I didn't get to your question, but there was just so many. But those were the main ones. I might try and answer other questions in future videos. So I hope that's maybe given you a little bit more insight. Also, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, there is extra content and burlesque vlogs over on my Patreon in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Do you wanna feel